36-yard attempt. Kuntz will snap it. Harvin will hold it, sweeps the leg, and that is a winner for Pittsburgh. On the brink of an unlikely playoff spot. And maybe this isn't the last dance for Big Ben.
Hi everybody, happy Victory Monday. I'm Missi Matthews and welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. The Steelers are still alive heading into the postseason and heading to face the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. But we need to talk about yesterday, what happened in Baltimore and also what happened in Las Vegas. So let's introduce you to my panelists here today. Bob Labriola of Steelers.com and Steelers Digest always lives in his sphere, so I can't wait to get his take on this. Hall of Famer and of SNR, Arthur Moats, and we also have former Steelers offensive lineman and also of the Steelers Radio Network, Craig Wolfley, joining us here. And guys, we saw Boz's winner. We saw what that did for the Steelers. It gave everybody a little bit hope. Jacksonville took care of their business, beating the Colts. So the Colts aren't in. Jacksonville clearly doing a favor, but then it was the waiting game. You had to get past the 4 o'clock games, getting to Sunday Night Football. And if you thought at halftime that game was over, I hope you did not go to sleep. Here's how that game ended in Las Vegas.
Biggest kick of the year for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Snap good, hold good, and Raiders in, Chargers out, Steelers in.
And thank you, Daniel Carlson. All right, Cam Hayward stayed up. He said, okay, signing off. Good night, Pittsburgh. We will see you in the playoffs. As you can tell, a lot of Steelers very excited. TJ Watt with a little Ric Flair here. It's how he started his press conference after the game. Arthur Mollett, also a happy camper. And also Chase Claypool doing a little dance to be excited for this. Okay, Labs, was this one of the craziest ends to a regular season you have seen?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL has done so much work in recent times to arrange the final week of the regular season and, shuffle the games, change kickoff times to make the situation, to avoid the exact situation that we had yesterday, which was the Raiders coach and the Chargers coach had several hours to ponder how they wanted to approach the game, and if there were any possible, ways that would benefit their team that, outside the, norm of playing to win. So that I think kind of created it. The schedule makers, I think, swung and missed on the Steelers should not have been a 1 o'clock game, and the Chargers and Raiders the 8 o'clock game. Something they should have been together, same time slot somewhere. But yeah, it was weird because Miss, you talk about going through the range of emotions. Until Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach, called that timeout it was inside 2 minutes of overtime. I think I'd given up. I mean, I just thought that these guys are going to play for the tie. It was being talked about quite openly that was a strategy, and so I just thought that neither one's going to try and win because then you risk losing.
Wolf, did you end up staying up to watch it live, or did you find out when you woke up this morning?
No, I stayed to the bitter end because it was very reminiscent of '89. In '89, again, we played in Tampa. We had this, the snow on Christmas Eve. It's a good omen. Everything's going good. Monday night, we got to have the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the Minnesota Vikings, right, to get into the playoffs. So there we are. Tunch and I are calling each other because we ride together to work on Tuesdays, right? Oh, we're going. Oh, we're not going. We're going. We're not going. I mean, it was one of those games, and Minnesota finally prevailed 22-21. And it was just a great moment, and you had to hang to the bitter end. So I was having flashbacks last night.
Arthur, when they went to overtime, and as Lab said, the tie was on social media, the announcers were talking about it, but knowing that they are rivals, could you ever see the Steelers and Ravens agreeing to tie? Take me through what you thought about that game last night.
Yeah, not a chance. The more I thought about it, the less likely I thought it would happen because of that part right there. When you're talking about rivals, division opponents, you never want to help them out. Even if by helping them, you help yourself, it's just one of those things. It's like a cardinal sin. You just can't do it. So 100%, I don't think I could ever mentally fathom a situation where we're going to work with the Ravens, kumbaya, hey guys, let's tie together. Nah, at the last second, I'm ready to renege on that deal and win it outright anyways, just to add to the bad blood between both parties. So I did think that would be the case. Now, like I said, it was some parts though in that game that we've all talked about where we're like, all right, maybe it's not as hated out there as we thought it should be. Maybe they are going to work together, but I'm glad in the end, football prevailed. We didn't have to worry about, personal agendas or trying to save face. We just let a game happen, and it turned out to be a good one.
All right, we were all riding the emotional roller coaster. The players were, of course, Steelers fans are, and some of the diehards were inside M&T Bank Stadium saying, there is a chance, different things like that. But on social media last night, I think everyone let out a sigh of relief. We asked for some of the best reactions of how you could explain what you went through on Sunday. The whole day of football, 11 hours and 3 minutes, the longest regular season finale in league history since 1970. And also, guys, the Raiders are heading to Cincinnati. They could have been going to Kansas City, so maybe that played into it as well. But either way, as we see here, Steelers Nation very excited. Going back, though, to Baltimore, because that is where the Steelers had to take care of business, or none of this even matters. Labs, there was 6:25 left in overtime. Ben Roethlisberger gets the ball. What did you think at that point?
Well, I mean, it was now or never. And while I won't say that, I was comfortable or extremely confident that Roethlisberger was going to take the offense down the field and win the game. I will say this: having him in that situation, to me, was about as good as it can get. I mean, that's a difficult situation. He had a long way to go. And the other thing about it was I had seen it happen before when they gave a trophy away at the end of the game. We all got really nice rings too afterwards. So it was one of those situations where I'd seen Ben do this before. I'd seen him do it before when the stakes were much higher. And so, there was that, but there was nothing about it that was easy or automatic.
Well, if there are a lot of important plays that took place on that drive, Coach Tomlin, thanking the young guys who stepped up, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Ray McLeod, Deontay Johnson. Which one on that drive really stood out to you the most?
There is a number of them. I mean, you think about it. You got 15 plays on that drive, each and every one important in their own self. But that 4th and 8 from the 41, when Ray came up with the catch, totally redeeming himself because he had dropped one a little bit earlier, catch or two earlier. That could have been contagious. Yet he comes back and he focuses and he shows you what a pro he is because he makes the big catch to extend that drive. 2 plays later, you got Najee showing a Najee 15-yard run. But that don't happen unless Ray McLeod kind of pulls himself together and makes the catch. And what a job he did. Good for Ray, and an opportunity to show I can do this job.
Let me just throw this in. A little shout out to Chase Claypool on that run. That was his block on the perimeter.
Oh, yes.
Yes, opened that.
Great point, Lab.
Good
Great
hustle.
Point.
Right. Receiver making a key block like that. Chase Claypool, I thought, had a good game, as a receiver on those jet sweeps and making catches and stuff. But I thought that was a high effort, productive, nitty gritty kind of play that Najee doesn't gain that much yardage without that block.
Arthur, we have seen the Steelers this season. It's not always pretty when they win. Ben Roethlisberger even said that's kind of sums up his play in his career. You get the win, but it's not always pretty. How did they find a way to pull this out, winning on Monday night against Cleveland at Heinz Field, going to Baltimore and taking care of business? It did go to overtime. And just about this group who is fairly young.
Yeah, 2 things to me stand out the most. Execution under pressure and the turnover battle. You look at this game, and when I talk about execution under pressure, look at the 4th quarter and those gotta have it moments. You look at how Ben operated with confidence. He operated with almost surgeon-like precision in terms of his ball placement. We talk about the Ray pass, but I think about that Pat Frymouth pass as well, where he's throwing it to the deep out and the defender is draped on Pat. That's a throw you got to make with confidence, with arm accuracy and power. And he did all of those things. But then you look on the flip side and you look at Huntley and you look at the Ravens offense, even though they would have moments, it just never felt like they believed. It never felt like they thought that they had the guy that could execute with the precision that was needed to get the job done. And the same could be said against Cleveland. To me, those were the big differences. And then when you throw in the turnovers that this defense continues to come up with, whether you're talking the forced fumble by TJ, the interception by Edmonds, whoever you want to go to, this defense continues to find ways to get the offense the ball back. And in the NFL, that's the name of the game. You want to get your offense as many opportunities as possible, because that's ultimately going to help you get these points on the board. In a game where we only scored 16 points, just think about how critical those extra possessions were in terms of us getting that.
All right, we have much more to talk about here on the Extra Point. We have not spoken yet about outside linebacker TJ Watt, who tied Michael Strahan's record for the most sacks in a single season in NFL history. We will touch on that and much more when we return. Don't go anywhere.
Hundley holds, steps up. Hundley sacks TJ Watt. NFL history. Watt has tied Michael Strahan's single season record, 22.5 sacks. TJ Watt comes through again.
And that, of course, is the Steelers' back-to-back-to-back team MVP, TJ Watt, that we are going to talk about here on the Extra Point. Labs, we know what took place in Baltimore. He tied the record. Maybe it was possible he broke the record. Where do you sit on that as we stand here on Monday?
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about it to know whether it was the aborted play was scored correctly or not. What I do know is that typically in these kinds of situations, even ones where, you know, it's just the first game of the season and there aren't records at stake or anything, you know, it's a regular procedure. The team can, I don't know if petition is the right word, but seek a second opinion from Elias Sports Bureau. They will go over and review the video and make some determination as to, you know, how the play should have been scored accurately. And so I'm confident that, you know, that'll happen. But you know, to me, the thing that I really came away with was the Ravens had no interest in allowing TJ Watt to break that record against them. I mean, he was going against two offensive linemen every snap. Now, I don't know if it was a tackle and a guard, but he had to get through two offensive linemen. It wasn't just a running back chip in or a tight end, you know, whatever. They committed two offensive linemen to him, and then there were other people hanging around too. So, you know, I guess that's part of it when you want to try and break a record against your most heated rival. The Steelers did a similar thing to Jamal Lewis in 2003 when the Ravens tried to get him the all-time single-season rushing record in that last game, and the Steelers didn't allow that to happen. So, you know, I can understand the competitive kind of juices flowing in that area.
Arthur, I want you to weigh in on TJ, and then I also have a follow-up question for you. So why don't you go on number 90 first?
Yeah, well, first off, when you talk about 22.5 sacks, that is a ton, a ton of sacks. And when you think about how many rushers in this league, Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers, All Pros, that have not been able to accomplish this. You talk about TJ's older brother, JJ, never did it. You talk about Von Miller, never did it. DeMarcus Ware, Julius Pepper. We can go down the list of all these guys, and they are separate from TJ because of what he was able to accomplish. And when you throw in the fact that he did it in 14, you could probably make a case 13.5 games just based on how often he played. To me, it just screams volumes. And I honestly think he could do better next year. That's the crazy part about this. I mean, that is who TJ is in terms of a hard worker. Even when he's receiving accolades and success, he still comes out there and works even harder. You remember, he was in the middle of getting paid, the highest defensive contract, right, this offseason. And he didn't have a letdown. He didn't come out here and get complacent. No, he turns it up another notch. For me, man, I'm just even more excited that we get another opportunity to see him play. And now we can see him work on those postseason sacks as well, man, because we know that's going to just take off as well for him.
All right, to follow up with that, with maybe some not so great defensive questions, the run defense. I know we've talked about it all season, but what did you see in terms of yesterday, and just quickly looking forward, knowing that you're going to Kansas City and you cannot let that happen?
Yeah, I thought situationally they did some good things to stop the run, especially in that overtime period where we knew they were going to try to make Latavius Murray the focal point. And the one thing I will say is this: what they still have to clean up is their fits. The big run that Murray had, the guys were downhill. It was great in terms of the point of attack, but they fit the run wrong. And when you fit a run wrong, now you're banking on extra defender, somebody making something special happen to get a guy on the ground. And on that play, it just didn't happen. But when they fit runs the right way, like they did later in the fourth and in that overtime period, we saw they can be very effective stopping the run. So once again, though, with this team, it's about consistency, because they've shown in all three phases that they can do things at a high level, but we've also seen them not be able to do it consistently enough. And I think that's the reason why we still get these performances as pertains to run defense, where it leaves us just, wanting a little bit more from them.
All right, well, if I want to move on in, the emotional side of everything, maybe it's the last ride for Ben, maybe it's just a team that everyone doubted that's coming together. I know you have some experience from this, and we dug up in our archives the 1984 divisional playoff game versus Denver. What can we take away from that and relay it to this version of the Steelers?
You can call it synergy. The sum of the whole is greater than the individual parts. And what transpires there is what Chuck Noll always used to talk about. The fact is, you get that one win. If everybody gets 1% better, before you know it, you got a 45% increase in productivity. Once you establish that sort of that hunger, that snowball that goes downhill, it starts gaining momentum and size on its own. You never know what can happen. It's just about getting to the dance. In '84, we went into LA, and what could best be described in the LA Coliseum as a 3-hour slugfest with the Oakland Raiders. We came out the winners when we shouldn't have, by all accounts, everybody's saying we shouldn't have won. Then we went into Denver, and I went out to eat the night before with some teammates, Tunch Ilkin and myself. We went out to eat, and we sat in a restaurant where the conversation was all about the game the next day. And you could hear people who obviously knew we were players who were pointedly saying loud enough, why are we even bothering to play the Pittsburgh Steelers? Bring on the fish. The going Miami Dolphins are talking about, right? So then here we go. We go in there and we whoop them as well. And so then we went to the AFC Championship game, and we didn't get beat by the Dolphins. We got beat by a Hall of Famer, Danny Marino, who just was unbelievable that day. But I will tell you this much. It was about just gaining a little traction, then guys believing, and just achieving as you roll through. That momentum can pick you up. I got to tell you something, man. This guy, Ben, you're right, Labs. We've seen this before. We've seen it 52 times before, game-winning drives. 65 yards at halftime, 95 after 3 quarters. And in the final quarter and in overtime, 19 to 25 for $149. And a touchdown. Come on, that's just Hall of Fame greatness, man.
All right, well, we know the Steelers and the Chiefs are playing on Sunday night at Arrowhead Stadium, but here is a look at the Super Wild Card weekend setup in terms of the AFC. Las Vegas, who helped the Steelers big time, they are heading to Cincinnati. That's a 4:30 game on Saturday. The Patriots and the Bills going at it at 8:15. And as we said, we know what happens on Sunday. So a lot to talk about. We have our matchup show coming up later this week. And guys, we're still in it. Still another week of fun, another week of football. So all smiles for what may be a very tired Victory Monday, but we'll worry about sleeping in the off season. Thanks so much for joining me here today on The Extra Point, and to everybody at home, we'll see you guys next week.
What's up, Steeler Nation? It's Terrell Edmonds. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers official YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on everything going on in the Steel City. Thanks for being the best fans in football, and here we go.